Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Ram Fam podcast, the snack time sized show for all things gaming around the internet. And can I just say thank you guys so much for all of the support on the first episode. I took some feedback from you guys, and I'm going to apply that feedback into today's episode. And boy, do we have quite a good one for you today. Lots of big topics to discuss, and let's start with the first one. The first one being the state of AAA games. Now, let's be honest, games nowadays, especially big games coming from big companies, are being released as broken, buggy messes. You know, they get overhyped, everyone's super excited for them to come out, and then when they come out, it is just an absolute shambles. But you know, I don't just take it from me. Maybe my opinion is wrong. Maybe I'm being a bit judgmental. So I decided to ask you guys. So I asked a couple of RamFam members, what do they feel about the state of AAA games lately? Well, let's see what you guys said. Pirate Cult says, I think some companies genuinely don't care about how good their game is because they know it will still sell. EA being a prime example with FC24, arguably the most buggy FIFA ever released. You know what? I kind of agree. EA is definitely a culprit of just, you know, release whatever the heck it is every year, and it will still make money. And the sad thing is, we will still keep buying it. I am guilty of this. I bought EA FC24, FIFA 23, FIFA 22, FIFA 21. The list goes on. I definitely am guilty of being one of those horrible consumers who will still buy the game. But I definitely agree with what Pirate Cult is saying here, that EAFC is definitely buggy. Let's have a look at this clip over here.
Can't miss this. He's bloody missed it! What a prat!
No, 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 no.
Even the commentary in the video game is getting out of hand. Have a look at this.
Liverpool trying to click into an attacking gear with the game level in the closing moments. Well, you've got to say, comfortably off target, Stuart.
Yeah, that's a waste of good possession. And honestly, I think Liverpool need to fucking sell him and buy a proper striker, Derek.
Now, obviously, that last clip was fake. It is an AI-generated voice, but hey, it may as well be that buggy, let's be honest, okay? Another game that comes to mind is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I bought that game on release, and yeah, it was super buggy, and even though everyone talked about it being super buggy, there were reviews all over the internet talking about it, it was still the #1 selling Nintendo game of all time. It somehow made just so many sales despite what people were saying, and it's again just because these companies have built such a reputation. They ride the hype, and people will still buy their game no matter how buggy it is. The other thing as well is that Nintendo themselves had promised to address these issues and fix the performance issues in a later patch, and let's just say that definitely has not happened. Pyrocle also says this definitely comes from pressure from the higher-ups in these studios folding to consumer demand and releasing a game on time instead of being finished. Now, this is definitely something that I always hear whenever I ask people about this. It's just, we feel that these developers are constantly being pushed and pressured to release these games on time, especially if you are a company who is expected to release games yearly, and looking at things like Nintendo and Pokemon, Call of Duty, you know, FIFA. Those games are expected to come out yearly, and there's only so much you can do in a year's time. These developers, they just feel really time crunched. Jay Shadow agrees with this, saying, I just reckon some devs don't get enough time to complete what they wanted to be released, and they get told to push the game out earlier than expected. Shine Gaming also says, I personally believe that companies are pushing to release content far too early. The players want the content before it is ready to be released, so in order to bring out the game fully, they decide to release DLC content rather than releasing the full game. Now, yeah, there are a few games that are guilty of this. I think it was one of the a Nintendo Directs, but I remember the moment that, you know, we all saw Mario Kart come up and everyone was jumping up and down. You know, new Mario Kart game, but no. We just got more maps. That was it. It was just DLC of maps that existed on other consoles. Sure, they were remastered and stuff to look all pretty, but like, Mario Kart 8 has been on both the Wii U and the Nintendo Switch. Mario Kart 9 when? So, you know, we've talked about all these things, and we gotta ask, you know, is it the higher-ups that are causing the problem? Because we can look at it from a different approach. We, the consumers, are the problem here. To better understand this, user Bam Freeman sheds some light on this situation. AAA games have gotten to this point because we have allowed it. I am personally of the opinion that in-game purchases such as cosmetics and skins are not really a big problem, with some exceptions. Yeah, I'll raise my hand there. You add some RNG elements and yeah, I'll spend a few microtransactions. I've definitely done that. People will still pay for it, regardless of what state the game is in. The problem is we pay for these really poor quality games. We enable the focus to be made on money and not quality. Thus, this is why we still have games like PUBG making absolutely ridiculous stupid skins after almost a decade, and we still don't have PUBG 2. Why fix your game if it still makes money? I'm not without fault in this. I have bought plenty of content that I probably shouldn't have. Guilty. I don't even want to talk about how much money I've spent on Rocket League and Fortnite, and it's... I'm weak. Send help. But yeah, guys, the ultimate theme here is, at the end of the day, the money will still come rolling in, no matter what state the game is currently at. And so, there will always be less of a focus on quality, so long as the money comes rolling in. Now, speaking of microtransactions and spending money and things like that on video games, one thing that we have seen across many video games, and it's become a new meta, you could say, is battle passes. Almost every single game nowadays has some form of a battle pass. In my opinion, I think battle passes have always been a really good way for me to come back to a game, to keep me going. It gives me incentive. You get weekly objectives, daily objectives, you level up that battle pass, you get cool skins, you might even get some of the currency back that you spent buying that battle pass. So I quite like battle passes. It keeps me engaged with the game, and it just gives me a reason to log back in. But you know, don't take my word for it. Let's see what you guys said. Starting with Pirate Cult, he says, I think they are good as long as you can earn enough in-game currency to get the next season's battle pass. I agree. Sometimes, you know, if you can, you only need to buy just one battle pass. You buy the one, you finish it, you get the currency back, and you can buy the next one. I will say though that yeah, I don't do that. I spend the currency I get back on items from the item shop, and then I end up having to pay cash for the next battle pass. Moving on, Jay says, I love seeing battle passes in free-to-play games more than buy-to-play games. I think that if there was a battle pass in a game that I already paid for, I probably won't even end up buying that battle pass. I'm already paying for the game. I don't necessarily need a battle pass. I do find that free-to-play games are better suited for that. So, that being said, returning back to the first topic about the state of AAA games and how a developer's focus might be focused more on making money rather than quality, do we maybe feel that they are focusing too much on battle passes? You know, battle passes are a seasonal thing. They need to make sure that they dish out these new items. They need to make sure they come up with a theme sometimes for the battle pass, that they might not just have time to, you know, fix the issues that are in the game. Now, I say that because it's not true for every company. One company that I think does a really good job with this, especially with one particular game, is Fortnite and Epic Game. You know, it's getting these weekly patches, it's adding new guns, it's changing up the map, it's adding so much stuff that you can do, it's adding new vehicles, and even new sponsorship deals with other companies. But all of this is happening, and at the same time, they're adding new skins, they're working on battle passes, they're adding new emotes. And so I feel like they have the capacity, they have the staff to be able to dish out all this cool new content, gameplay wise, as well as all these cool microtransactions for those who want to actually, try that out. So I think that it's more of the company themselves. If they can get the right capacity and really balance out their resources, I think that most companies can probably make it work. They just need to really think about how they prioritize different things. The final thing that I will say when it comes to the state of AAA games is I feel that single player games, when they come out, have such a high expectancy. When I pay for a single player game experience, I want the whole package. I want my massive open world, I want my storytelling, I want my core gameplay, I want my post game, and I'm paying for that entire package and expecting that entire package to all be contained in that game the moment I purchase it. With multiplayer games, it's a little bit different. A multiplayer game can go into a beta, it can go into an alpha, they can have playtests, and as well as they can keep patching their games and adding fresh new content and changing it up all the time. Whereas with a single player game, there's only so much you can actually change. And so I find that with multiplayer games, when they are released, we tend to cut them some slack. A new multiplayer game comes out, their servers are laggy, we say, it's day one. It's a day one release. A new multiplayer game comes out, there's some bugs, that's alright. It's a brand new game. I'm sure they'll patch it later on. But then a single player game comes out and it has all these bugs, and we are immediately bashing on that. And I think it's just because the expectancy of a single player game is that it has to contain that whole package. It has to be refined and polished. One company that I'm genuinely hopeful for is Rockstar Games. My goodness, they have been quiet, and I will applaud them for being quiet, and let me tell you why. When a game company is quiet and they're not releasing trailers, they're not releasing release dates, they haven't told us anything about GTA 6, I like that. Because if they do, it starts building this hype, it starts building this expectation, it starts even getting to a point where people want the game sooner rather than waiting for it. And if we want the game sooner, these developers are going to be rushed. That's what we've been saying this whole time. So I kind of like that they're not saying anything. Take your time. And when you feel comfortable, Rockstar Games, when you feel comfortable to let us know what's happening with GTA 6, then I'll be happy. I am more than happy to wait to hear something about GTA 6 if it means that we are getting a quality game. Seeing what they did with GTA 5, I have faith that GTA 6 will be quite a good game in the future, whenever it may come out. Moving on to the next topic. Oh boy, we've talked about some big AAA companies, and there's one AAA company that we need to talk about. Nintendo. What are you doing? Yeah, what are you doing, Nintendo? The Nintendo Switch, this little bad boy here. I've got my own little Nintendo Switch. This Nintendo Switch right here came out in 2017, making this console almost 7 years old. The Switch OLED model did come out a little later, but it honestly didn't add any kind of performance boosts. It added a bigger screen, it added an Ethernet port, and OLED. Whoa. It didn't actually make the games run any better. But here's another situation that Nintendo Switch has always been doing, and I just don't think it works. Nintendo likes to take really big AAA games and then make them worse and then put it on their Switch. One game that comes to mind, it just recently came out, is Hogwarts Legacy. Hogwarts Legacy literally had to delay their release by almost 6 months for the Nintendo Switch because the developers had to make the game look worse and run worse in order to get it to work on the Nintendo Switch. And I just don't think that's fair, because people are gonna start hating on the game when in reality they're not actually getting the proper game experience. Hey, if you guys want to know what it looks like, have a look at this clip here and look at the difference. So there's definitely no denying that the Switch is quite old now, and surely, Nintendo has something in the works, but the question is what? What are your predictions? Do we expect a big console to be announced from Nintendo next year? The final comment I have is from Bam Freeman, who says, I think Nintendo is starting to realize just how far behind they really are. It's hard to create a new, unique game from their lack of keeping up. The newest Zelda is a perfect example. Breath of the Wild was groundbreaking and brought fresh breath of uniqueness. Breath of uniqueness? Breath of the Wild? I see what you did there. Well done, well done. Breath of the Wild was groundbreaking and brought a fresh breath of uniqueness to the franchise, where Tears really felt like an expansion to Breath of the Wild. So to answer your question, yes, I think they are working on something. Whether it will be worth anything is yet to be seen, but here's to hoping. Speaking of Tears of the Kingdom, it got nominated for Game of the Year, so the Game of the Year awards, it is going to happen, I think, like a week after this podcast drops, so let me tell you what I think about the Game Awards. Personally, I'm a little disappointed that one particular game was not nominated for Game of the Year, and that is Final Fantasy XVI. That game was just so incredible, and to just not see it up there was a little sad. The Game Awards is a bit tricky because it feels like it doesn't just reward how good a game is, but it also kind of depends on when the game released. I bet a lot of you probably forgot that Hogwarts Legacy actually came out this year. Well, guess what? Hogwarts Legacy, as good of a game as it was, got nominated for 0 awards. Same thing with Final Fantasy XVI, because it dropped a little earlier in the year, it kind of just dropped off in hype. And yet, what are you seeing as the Game of the Year nominees? Games that released very recently. You have Baldur's Gate, Spider-Man 2, Super Mario Wonder. These are games that just recently came out, and so I feel like if you time your game around when the Game of the Year awards are going to happen, yeah, you're getting nominated. But if you release your game at the start of the year, you could say goodbye to Game of the Year. And I personally don't like that. As gamers, we kind of just like to ride the hype train, and if a game is hyped at the moment, yeah, it's going to get nominated. But if a game is forgotten about because it's been however many months, yeah, it won't get nominated, which is a shame, because I do feel like some games that released earlier in the year definitely deserve to be up there. What do I think is going to win Game of the Year? As much as I hate to say it, probably Baldur's Gate 3, but we'll see. That being said, I'll end this podcast on a high note. Let's all agree that 2023 has been a year that is incredible for gaming. Despite what I've said about AAA games, despite what I've said about all these big companies, screwing up here and there, there's no denying that we have been absolutely spoiled for games this year. We've received a lot of bangers this year. Let's go through just some of the honorable mentions, honestly. We have Baldur's Gate, Hogwarts Legacy, Final Fantasy XVI, Diablo 4, Tears of the Kingdom, Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Metroid Prime, Street Fighter 6, Mortal Kombat 1, and the list just keeps going. I think 2023 has been such an incredible year for gaming, and what a good way to wrap up the year as well. Now, I will let you guys know that December we will not have a podcast episode, as I will be releasing a new RAM Out of Context episode. Woo! So keep an eye on that. It will drop on my birthday, so that's December 12th. So this will be the last podcast episode of the year, but definitely there's no denying 2023, such a great year for gaming. Alrighty, well that wraps up today's podcast episode. Thanks so much for listening or watching. It's outro time. Have a wonderful night, have a wonderful morning, have a wonderful afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.